The rope burns on Temperance Parker's wrists had long since stopped bleeding, but the humiliation still burned fresh as she stood in the dusty square of Llano, Texas, while two men bartered over her like she was nothing more than livestock. It was 1878, and the scorching August sun beat down mercilessly on the small trading post where her uncle had just agreed to hand her over to a group of rough trappers in exchange for 3 horses and winter supplies. "She can cook and mend," her uncle said, spitting tobacco juice into the dirt. "Worth more than what you are offering, but I need those horses." Temperance kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, refusing to let tears fall. Her parents had died of fever 6 months ago, leaving her in the care of her father's brother, a man who had shown her nothing but contempt from the moment she arrived at his ranch. She had worked from dawn until dusk, tending his livestock, cooking his meals, washing his clothes, and this was how he repaid her devotion, trading her away like she meant nothing. The lead trapper, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, circled her slowly. "She looks strong enough. We need someone to handle camp duties up in the Northern Territories. Deal." They shook hands, and Temperance felt her stomach drop. The Northern Territories meant months of isolation, brutal conditions, and she had heard the stories of what happened to women in those camps. Her uncle grabbed the reins of the horses without a backward glance, already counting his profit. "Wait just a minute there." The voice cut through the air like a knife, deep and authoritative. Temperance turned to see a man striding toward them, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust with each step. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his worn leather vest, and beneath the shadow of his wide-brimmed hat, she could see sharp blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He could not have been much older than 25, maybe 26, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. "This does not concern you, Finnegan," the trapper growled. Finnegan Warner did not slow his approach. "Making it my concern, Dutch. That girl does not look like she is here by choice. Her uncle sold her fair and square. We have a deal." Finnegan stopped a few feet away, his hand resting casually on the pistol at his hip. The gesture was subtle, but everyone in the square noticed. "Is that right? You want to go with these men, miss?" Temperance's heart hammered in her chest. She had never seen this man before, but something in his steady gaze made her feel like she could trust him. "No, sir, I do not." The trapper named Dutch stepped forward aggressively. "She does not have a choice. The deal is done." "Well, here is a new deal," Finnegan said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "How many horses did you trade?" 3 horses and supplies worth $50, Temperance's uncle called out, clearly annoyed by the interruption. Finnegan nodded slowly, then turned to his own horse, a magnificent roan stallion tied nearby. He walked to his saddlebags and pulled out a leather pouch, the clink of coins unmistakable. "I will give you 6 horses from my ranch, delivered by tomorrow morning, and $100 in gold coin. Right now." The square went silent. That was more than double the original offer, an amount that would set up any rancher for a profitable year. Temperance's uncle pushed forward, his eyes gleaming with greed. "You serious about that?" "Dead serious." Finnegan counted out the gold coins, the late afternoon sun making them gleam in his calloused palm. "But the girl goes free. No strings, no conditions. She walks away from here a free woman able to make her own choices." Dutch's face reddened with anger. "Now hold on, we had a deal first." "And now there is a better one," Finnegan said, his tone brooking no argument. "You can take the 3 horses and supplies you were promised, or you can walk away with nothing and we can settle this another way." His hand moved slightly closer to his pistol. The trappers exchanged glances, reading the situation correctly. Finnegan Warner had a reputation in Llano and the surrounding counties. He was known as a fair man but not one to cross, and the 4 men who rode with him were already positioning themselves around the square, their presence making the odds very clear. "This is not over," Dutch muttered, but he and his men backed away, heading toward the saloon. Temperance's uncle snatched the gold coins from Finnegan's hand. "Deal, she is all yours." "She is not mine," Finnegan corrected sharply. "She is free, like I said." He turned to Temperance, his expression softening. "Miss, you do not owe me anything, and you do not have to go anywhere you do not want to go. I have a ranch about 5 miles west of here. My sister lives there with her husband and their 2 children. If you need a place to stay until you figure out what you want to do, you are welcome. Or I can stake you enough money to buy a ticket east, west, wherever you want to go. Your choice." Temperance stared at this stranger who had just paid a small fortune for her freedom and was now offering her even more without asking for anything in return. Her throat tightened with emotion. "Why would you do this for me? You do not even know me." Finnegan removed his hat, revealing more of his face. There was kindness there, mixed with something that looked like old pain. "Because everyone deserves to be free, miss. And because I know what it is like to feel trapped by circumstances beyond your control." He extended his hand to her. "Name is Finnegan Warner. Friends call me Finn." She hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. His grip was warm and steady, grounding. "Temperance Parker. People used to call me Temp before. Before things got hard," he finished gently. "Well, Miss Temp, what do you say? Want to ride out to the ranch? My sister Clara makes the best supper in 3 counties, and there is a spare room in the guest cabin. No pressure, no obligations." Looking into his honest blue eyes, Temperance made a decision that would change her life. "Yes, yes, I would like that very much." Finnegan smiled, the expression transforming his face from merely handsome to something that made her heart skip. He helped her onto his horse, then swung up behind her. As they rode out of Llano, Temperance allowed herself to relax against his solid chest, feeling safer than she had in months. The Warner Ranch appeared on the horizon just as the sun began to paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was a sprawling property with a main house, several outbuildings, and corrals filled with some of the finest horses Temperance had ever seen. A woman came out onto the porch, shielding her eyes against the setting sun. "Finn, that you?" she called. "It is, Clara," Finnegan replied, bringing the horse to a stop near the porch. "We have a guest. This is Miss Temperance Parker. She is going to be staying in the guest cabin for a while." Clara Warner was a pretty woman in her early 30s with kind eyes and an immediately welcoming demeanor. She took one look at Temperance's disheveled appearance and rope-burned wrists and seemed to understand the situation without needing explanation. "Well, come on inside, honey. Let us get you cleaned up and fed. You look like you have been through an ordeal." Over the next hour, Temperance found herself swept into the warm chaos of the Warner household. Clara's husband, Thomas, was a quiet man with a ready smile, and their 2 children, 7-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Joshua, were curious but polite. While Clara heated water for a bath and found clean clothes, Temperance learned that the ranch had been in Finnegan's family for 15 years, built by his father before the war. "Finn runs it now," Clara explained as she laid out a simple blue dress and fresh undergarments. "Has for the past 6 years, since Pa passed. He has built it into one of the most successful horse ranches in Central Texas. Works too hard if you ask me, but he is good at what he does." That night, cleaned up and wearing borrowed clothes, Temperance sat at the dinner table with the Warner family. The meal was simple but delicious, beef stew with fresh bread and butter. She found herself stealing glances at Finnegan, trying to understand this man who had appeared like some kind of guardian angel in her darkest moment. He caught her looking once and smiled. "Everything all right, Miss Temp?" "Yes, I just—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I want to thank you again. What you did today, that money could have gone toward your ranch, your business. I cannot imagine why you would spend it on a stranger." Finnegan set down his spoon, his expression growing serious. "My mother was sold to pay a debt when she was 17 years old. My father bought her freedom the same way I bought yours today. He loved her from the moment he saw her, and she came to love him too. They had 20 good years together before the fever took her. My father always said that freeing her was the best investment he ever made, not because of what she could do for him, but because it was the right thing to do." He met her eyes across the table. "I grew up believing that everyone deserves the chance to choose their own path. Today, I was just giving you that chance." Temperance felt tears prick her eyes. "Your father sounds like he was a good man." "He was. I try to live by his example." Over the following weeks, Temperance settled into life on the ranch. Clara insisted she stay in the guest cabin rent-free, but Temperance could not stomach the idea of being a burden. She began helping around the house, cooking meals, tending the garden, and looking after Emma and Joshua when Clara needed time for other chores. It felt good to work for people who appreciated her efforts, who thanked her and treated her with respect. But it was Finnegan who occupied more and more of her thoughts. She would watch him work with the horses, his movements confident and gentle as he trained the young ones. He had a gift for it, speaking to the animals in low, soothing tones that seemed to calm even the most skittish colts. Sometimes he would notice her watching and wave, that warm smile lighting his face. In the evenings, after supper, Finnegan would often sit on the porch with a cup of coffee, looking out over the land. Temperance found herself drawn to those quiet moments, joining him when the children had been put to bed, and Clara and Thomas had retired to their room. "You do not have to keep me company," Finnegan said one night as she settled into the chair beside him. "I know I am not the most exciting conversationalist." "I like the quiet," Temperance replied, "and I like the company, if I am not intruding, not at all." He passed her a cup of coffee, already prepared the way she liked it, with just a touch of sugar. He had noticed. The small gesture made her heart flutter. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the distant sound of cattle settling for the night. Finally, Finnegan spoke. "Can I ask you something, Temp?" "Of course." "What do you want? I mean, for your future. You have been here almost a month now, and I do not want you to feel like you are stuck here. If you want to go somewhere, start fresh in a new town, I meant what I said about helping you get there." Temperance considered the question carefully. A month ago, she would have jumped at the chance to leave Texas, to run as far from the memories of loss and betrayal as possible. But now, sitting on this porch beside this good man, she realized she had found something precious here. Not just safety, but belonging. "I do not want to leave," she said quietly. "I know I should probably go make my own way, but the truth is I am happy here. Happier than I have been since my parents died. Your sister has become a true friend, the children are wonderful, and you—" She trailed off, suddenly shy. "And me," Finnegan prompted, his voice gentle. She gathered her courage and turned to face him. "And you make me feel like I matter. Like I am worth something beyond what I can do or provide. You look at me like I am a person, not a possession." She laughed shakily. "I sound foolish." "No," Finnegan said, and suddenly his hand was covering hers on the arm of the chair. "No, you do not sound foolish at all." "Can I tell you something?" She nodded, her breath catching at the warmth of his touch. "When I saw you standing in that square, looking so brave even though you were clearly terrified, Something inside me just knew. I could not walk away. And these past weeks, getting to know you, watching you laugh with Emma and Joshua, seeing you become part of this place, I have come to care for you. A great deal. Finn, she whispered, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. He stood and gently pulled her to her feet, his hands clasping hers. I know it is fast, maybe too fast, but I am not a man who plays games or hides his feelings. I am falling in love with you, Temperance Parker. Have been since the moment you took my hand in that square and trusted me. I would be honored if you would consider staying here, not as a guest or an employee, but as someone I am courting. Properly courting, with the intention of making you my wife someday, if you will have me. Temperance's heart felt like it might burst from her chest. This good, honorable man was offering her everything she had never dared to dream of. Home, family, love. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I would like that very much, because I am falling in love with you too, Finn. I think I started the moment you stood up to those trappers for me. Finnegan's smile was brighter than the stars beginning to emerge overhead. He lifted one hand to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away the single happy tear that had escaped. "May I kiss you, please?" she whispered. He lowered his head slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, but Temperance had never been more certain of anything. When his lips met hers, soft and sweet and full of promise, she felt like she was finally, truly home. The next 6 months passed in a blur of happiness. Finnegan courted her with an old-fashioned dedication that made her feel cherished. He brought her wildflowers from the meadows, taught her to ride his gentlest mare, and spent every possible moment by her side. They would take long walks in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing, sharing their dreams and fears and hopes for the future. Clara watched their growing love with obvious approval. "I have never seen my brother so happy," she confided to Temperance one afternoon as they worked on mending clothes together. "You are good for him. He has spent so long taking care of everyone else, building up the ranch, making sure Thomas and I were settled. It is about time he found someone to share his life with." "I am the lucky one," Temperance replied, carefully darning a sock. "He saved me, Clara, in every way a person can be saved." "You saved each other," Clara corrected with a knowing smile. "That is what real love does." By December, when the first cold winds began to blow across the Texas plains, Finnegan asked Temperance to marry him. They were standing by the corral, watching a new foal take its first wobbly steps, when he reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold band. "It was my mother's," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Pa gave it to me before he died, told me to give it to a woman worthy of it. You are that woman, Temp. You are brave and kind and strong, and you have made this house feel like a real home again. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner and the mother of my children someday?" Through happy tears, Temperance said yes. They were married in the spring of 1879, in a simple ceremony at the small church in Leno. Clara stood up as her matron of honor, and Thomas served as Finnegan's best man. Emma and Joshua scattered wildflower petals down the aisle, their faces beaming with excitement. Half the county turned out for the celebration, testament to the respect and affection the Warner family commanded. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Finnegan kissed her with such tenderness that Temperance felt like her heart might overflow. They were together now, truly together, bound by law and love and the promise of a future built on trust and mutual respect. Their wedding night was spent in the main house, which Finnegan had expanded and renovated as his wedding gift to her. Clara and Thomas had moved into a new house he had built for them on the eastern edge of the property, giving the newlyweds privacy. As Finnegan carried her over the threshold, Temperance marveled at how completely her life had transformed. "Happy Mrs. Warner," Finnegan asked, setting her down gently in their bedroom. "Happier than I ever thought possible, Mr. Warner," she replied, reaching up to wrap her arms around his neck. Their first kiss as husband and wife led to another, and as night deepened around them, they discovered the joy of truly belonging to each other. Finnegan was gentle and patient, making sure Temperance felt safe and cherished every moment. By dawn, she understood what it meant to be loved completely, without reservation or condition. Life on the ranch fell into a comfortable rhythm. Temperance managed the household with Clara's help, and together they started a small business selling preserves and baked goods to the general store in Lano. Finnegan continued to build his reputation as one of the finest horse breeders in Texas, his stock sought after by ranchers and cavalry officers alike. In the quiet moments, usually in the evenings when they sat together on their porch, Finnegan would tell Temperance about his dreams for the future. "I want to build something lasting," he said one night, his arm around her shoulders. "Something we can pass down to our children and their children. Not just the ranch, but a legacy of doing right by people, of standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves." "Like you did for me," Temperance said softly. "Like we will do together," he corrected. "You are just as much a part of this as I am, Temp. Your strength, your compassion, the way you see the best in people, that matters just as much as any horse or acre of land." By the fall of 1879, Temperance discovered she was with child. The news sent Finnegan into a state of joy so pure that it made her laugh even as happy tears streamed down her face. He became even more protective, insisting she rest more, that Clara help with the heavier chores, that she eat well and avoid any strain. "Finn, I am pregnant, not made of glass," she protested one afternoon when he tried to carry her up the porch steps. "I know, but you are carrying the most precious cargo in the world," he replied, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "Our baby. I want to make sure both of you are safe and healthy." Their son was born in May of 1880, during a thunderstorm that rattled the windows and made the ranch hands joke that the boy was announcing his arrival with appropriate drama. Finnegan stayed by Temperance's side through the entire labor, holding her hand and whispering encouragement, ignoring Clara's suggestion that he wait outside like most men did. "I am not leaving her," he said firmly. "We are in this together." When the midwife finally placed the squalling infant in Temperance's arms, both parents wept. He was perfect, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would eventually turn the same blue as his father's. "What should we name him?" Temperance asked, exhausted but glowing. Finnegan traced one finger down their son's tiny cheek. "What about Samuel, after my grandfather? He was a good man, fought for what he believed in." "Samuel Warner," Temperance tested the name. "I love it. Hello, Samuel. Welcome to the world, little one." Watching Finnegan with their son over the following months filled Temperance with a love so deep, it sometimes frightened her with its intensity. He was a devoted father, patient and gentle, singing lullabies in his deep voice and walking the floor during the difficult nights when Samuel was fussy. He involved himself in every aspect of his son's care, changing diapers and giving baths without complaint, behavior that scandalized some of the older ranch hands but earned him Temperance's undying admiration. "You are an extraordinary man, Finn Warner," she told him one night as they watched Samuel sleep in his cradle. "I am just loving my family the way they deserve to be loved," he replied, pulling her close. "The way you deserve to be loved every single day." As Samuel grew from infant to toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. Finnegan took on 2 new hands and expanded the breeding operation, while Temperance and Clara grew their preserve business large enough to start supplying stores in neighboring counties. Life was full and rich and good. In the summer of 1882, Temperance found herself pregnant again. This time, she greeted the news with confidence born of experience. Finnegan was just as excited as he had been the first time, but more relaxed, trusting in his wife's strength and resilience. Their daughter was born in February of 1883, during the coldest week of the year. She came into the world with barely a whimper, her eyes wide and curious from the start. They named her Margaret, after Temperance's mother, with Rose as a middle name. "She is going to be a heartbreaker," Finnegan predicted, cradling his daughter with the same gentle confidence he showed with his horses. "Look at her. She already knows she owns the world." 2-year-old Samuel peered into his sister's face with solemn interest. "Baby," he pronounced, reaching out to pat her head with surprising gentleness. "That is right, Sam," Temperance said, her heart full. "That is your sister. You are going to help us take care of her." The years that followed were perhaps the happiest of Temperance's life. She and Finnegan built their family and their business, becoming pillars of the Lano community. They were known for their generosity, often helping neighbors in need, providing work for those down on their luck, and standing up against injustice whenever they encountered it. One afternoon in 1885, a situation arose that brought Temperance back to that day in the town square 7 years before. A young man, barely 18, had been accused of stealing cattle and was being held in the makeshift jail. The evidence was flimsy, built more on prejudice than fact. The boy was half Mexican, and some of the ranchers were looking for any excuse to run his family out of the area. Finnegan investigated the situation thoroughly, talking to witnesses and examining the supposed evidence. At the town meeting called to decide the boy's fate, he stood up and presented a clear, logical argument for his innocence, backed by testimony from several ranch hands who confirmed the boy had been working on the Warner ranch the day the cattle went missing. "We are not going to condemn an innocent young man because of fear or prejudice," Finnegan said, his voice ringing with authority. "Justice means looking at facts, not making assumptions based on who someone is or where they come from. This boy is innocent, and I will stake my reputation on it." The boy was released, and his family remained in the area, becoming good friends with the Warners. Temperance watched her husband throughout the ordeal with pride, remembering the man who had stood up for her when she had no one else. "You did it again," she said that night as they prepared for bed. "Did what?" Finnegan asked, pulling off his boots. "Stood up for someone who could not stand up for themselves. Risked your reputation to do what was right. It is one of the things I love most about you, Finn. You never changed. You are the same good man now that you were the day you freed me." He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. "We do it together, Temp. Everything we have built, everything we stand for, that is us. Partners in all things, remember." She kissed him deeply, pouring 7 years of love and gratitude into the gesture. "Partners in all things," she agreed. By 1887, Samuel was a bright 7-year-old who followed his father everywhere, learning the horse business from the ground up. Margaret, at 4, was already showing signs of her mother's determination, and her father's gift with animals. The ranch had grown to become one of the largest in the region, employing nearly 20 men and shipping horses as far east as Louisiana and as far west as New Mexico. But for all their success, Finnegan and Temperance never lost sight of what mattered most. Family dinners were sacred, with no business discussed at the table. Sundays were for rest and church and long family walks across their land. And every night, without fail, Finnegan and Temperance took time to sit together, talking about their day, their dreams, their children, and the life they had built together. "You ever think about that day in the square?" Finnegan asked one evening as they watched the sun set from their porch, Samuel and Margaret playing in the yard nearby. Sometimes, Temperance admitted, it feels like another life now, like it happened to a different person. In a way it did, Finnegan said thoughtfully. You are not that frightened girl anymore, and I am not just some cowboy with more money than sense. He smiled. We grew into who we were meant to be together. Do you ever regret it? The money you spent that day could have bought a lot of things for the ranch. Finnegan turned to face her fully, his blue eyes serious. Temperance Warner, I have never regretted a single moment of loving you. That money bought me the best thing in my life. It bought your freedom, yes, but it also brought me you. Everything good I have, everything I am proud of comes back to that decision. I would make it again 1,000 times over. Tears filled Temperance's eyes. I love you so much, Finn. Sometimes I cannot believe this is my life, that I get to wake up every morning next to you, that we have these beautiful children and this incredible life. After everything I lost, everything that happened, I never imagined I could be this happy. You deserve every bit of it, Finnegan said firmly, taking her hand. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you have it. As the years continued to pass, the Warner family became legendary in Central Texas. Their success was admired, but more than that, their integrity and compassion were held up as examples of what people should aspire to. They raised their children to value hard work and kindness, to stand up for what was right even when it was difficult, and to never judge others based on circumstances beyond their control. In 1890, when Samuel was 10 and Margaret was 7, Temperance gave birth to their third child, a son they named Daniel. Finnegan, now 37, joked that he was getting too old to be walking the floor with a crying infant, but Temperance saw the way his face lit up every time he held his youngest son, and she knew he would not trade these nights for anything. Their family complete, Finnegan and Temperance focused on building the kind of home they both had dreamed of. The ranch house was always full of laughter and music, with neighbors stopping by for supper and children running through the rooms. Clara and Thomas lived close by, their own children now teenagers who helped manage various aspects of the ever-expanding operation. On their 10th anniversary, Finnegan took Temperance back to Lano, to the square where they had first met. It was early morning before most of the town had woken, and they stood together in the quiet. You remember exactly where you were standing? Finnegan asked. Right there. Temperance pointed to a spot near the trading post. I was trying so hard not to cry, not to let them see how terrified I was. And I was over there, Finnegan indicated a spot about 20 feet away. Riding back from checking on a horse sale, I almost did not come through town that morning, almost took the long way around. But you did not, Temperance said softly. But I did not, and my whole life changed. He pulled her close, there in the square where it all began. Best decision I ever made, getting involved in something that was not my business. Best money I ever spent, best risk I ever took. You gave me everything, Finn. My freedom, my life, our family, everything. He shook his head. We gave each other everything, Temp. That is what love does. It makes us better, stronger, more than we could ever be alone. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for trusting me that day. Thank you for taking a chance on a cowboy who just wanted to do the right thing. Thank you for seeing me, she whispered against his chest, for looking past the circumstances and seeing the person underneath, for giving me the chance to choose my own path. They stayed in the square for a while longer, remembering and grateful, before riding back to the ranch and the life they had built together. As the 1890s progressed, the Warner Ranch became known not just for quality horses but for innovation. Finnegan began experimenting with breeding programs, carefully selecting traits that would produce stronger, faster, more resilient animals. Temperance expanded her business ventures, starting a small school for the children of ranch hands and nearby families, ensuring that the next generation had opportunities for education, regardless of their circumstances. Samuel showed a natural aptitude for the horse business, while Margaret surprised everyone by developing a talent for numbers and business management. By the time she was 12, she was keeping detailed records of breeding lines and sales, her organized mind perfect for the administrative side of the operation. Daniel, the youngest, was still finding his way, but he showed promise in everything he tried, blessed with his father's patience and his mother's determination. In 1895, when the family gathered to celebrate Finnegan's 42nd birthday, Temperance looked around the crowded table with deep satisfaction. Clara and Thomas were there with their children, now young adults starting families of their own. Samuel, at 15, sat tall and proud, already looking like a younger version of his father. Margaret, at 12, was animated as she explained her latest business idea to her uncle. Daniel, now 5, sat on Finnegan's lap, chattering about a new foal in the barn. "What are you thinking about?" Finnegan asked her later, after the guests had gone home and the children were in bed. "Just how far we have come," Temperance replied, settling into his arms on their porch, their familiar evening ritual. 17 years ago, I was standing in a town square being sold like property, thinking my life was over. Now I am here with you, with our children, with this beautiful life we have built. It feels like a miracle." "Not a miracle," Finnegan corrected gently. "A choice. You chose to trust me. I chose to stand up for you. We chose to build this life together every single day. That is not magic or luck, Temp. That is us, working together, loving each other, refusing to give up even when things got hard." "Has it been hard?" she asked curiously. "I mean for you. You gave up so much for me that first day." "I gave up some money and some horses," Finnegan said, his voice firm. "In return, I got the love of my life, 3 incredible children, and a partnership that makes every single day worth living. That is not a sacrifice, Temp. That is the best trade I ever made." She laughed, the sound mixing with the evening birdsong. "You have a unique way of looking at business transactions, Mr. Warner. Well, when it comes to you, Mrs. Warner, I have never been able to think in purely business terms. From the moment I saw you, my heart was involved." As they sat together, watching the stars emerge one by one, Temperance reflected on the truth of his words. Their life had not been without challenges. There had been drought years when water was scarce and tempers short. There had been illness and injury, the usual struggles of raising children and running a large operation. But through it all, they had faced everything together, their partnership strengthening with each obstacle overcome. In 1898, Samuel, now 18, took on more responsibility in the ranch operations, working alongside his father to manage the breeding program and train the hands. He had grown into a fine young man, with his father's integrity and his mother's compassion. Margaret, at 15, had started helping Temperance with the school, discovering a talent for teaching that surprised and delighted her. One evening, Samuel came to his parents with serious news. "Pa, Ma, there is a girl. Her name is Lucy Stevens. Her father owns the ranch on the eastern border of our property. I would like your permission to court her properly." Finnegan and Temperance exchanged glances, seeing in their son's eyes the same certainty they had felt for each other so many years ago. "Tell us about her," Finnegan said. Samuel's face lit up as he described Lucy, her kindness, her intelligence, her love of horses and ranch life. As he talked, Temperance reached over and took Finnegan's hand, remembering the early days of their own courtship. "She sounds wonderful, son," Finnegan said when Samuel finished. "You have my blessing, and I am sure you have your mother's as well." "Absolutely," Temperance agreed. "Bring her to dinner soon. We would love to meet her properly." After Samuel left, his step light with happiness, Finnegan pulled Temperance close. "Our boy is falling in love." "When did we get old enough to have a son thinking about marriage? We are not old," Temperance protested, though at 35 she sometimes felt the years in her bones after a long day. "We are seasoned." "Seasoned," Finnegan repeated with a laugh. "I like that. Makes us sound like a good piece of leather, well worn but reliable." "Exactly," she said, kissing him. "Reliable, dependable, and still very much in love." "Always," he murmured against her lips, "until my last breath and beyond." By 1900, as the new century dawned, the Warner family had much to celebrate. Samuel married Lucy Stevens in a beautiful ceremony that reminded Finnegan and Temperance of their own wedding day. Margaret, now 17, had been accepted to a teaching college in Austin, determined to get proper credentials for her work at the school. Daniel, at 10, was showing signs of becoming a talented horseman in his own right. The ranch had grown beyond Finnegan's wildest dreams, encompassing thousands of acres and producing horses that were sought after across the country. But more important than the business success was the legacy of compassion and integrity the Warners had established. They were known as people who could be trusted, who gave fair wages and treated everyone with respect, who stood up against injustice whenever they saw it. One afternoon in the spring of 1902, an old man came to the ranch, asking to speak with Finnegan and Temperance. They met him on the porch, offering water and a chair. "My name is Robert Parker," the man said, his voice shaking slightly. "I believe I am Temperance's uncle, the one who sold her all those years ago." Temperance felt her body tense, old memories flooding back. Finnegan's hand found hers immediately, a steady anchor. "I know I have no right to come here," Robert continued, his face lined with regret. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I am old now and sick, and I needed to tell you that I am sorry. I have spent the last 24 years regretting that day, what I did to you. You were my brother's child, his precious daughter, and I treated you like you were nothing. I threw away the best of him out of greed and bitterness." There was a long silence. Temperance felt Finnegan's thumb rubbing gentle circles on the back of her hand, giving her strength but leaving the decision to her. Finally, she spoke. "What happened that day was terrible. It hurt me deeply, made me feel worthless and alone. But it also led me here to Finn, to our children, to this life. I have been happy, Uncle Robert, happier than I think I ever could have been under your roof." "I am glad," Robert said, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I am so glad. You deserved happiness. You deserved so much better than what I gave you." "I forgive you," Temperance said quietly. The words surprised even her, but once spoken, she felt their truth. "I forgive you, Uncle Robert, not because what you did was acceptable, but because I do not want to carry that anger anymore. I want to be free of it completely." Robert broke down then, sobbing with relief and gratitude. They gave him a meal and a place to sleep for the night, and in the morning he left with their forgiveness and a small amount of money to help him through his final days. After he was gone, Finnegan held Temperance close. "You are extraordinary," he said, "to forgive like that after everything." "I learned it from you," she replied. "You taught me that holding on to anger only hurts us. That forgiveness is not about excusing what someone did, but about freeing ourselves from the weight of it." "When did I teach you that?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Every day," Temperance said. "In the way you live, the way you treat people, the way you have loved me." You showed me what it means to be truly free, Finn. Free from bitterness, from fear, from the past. And I wanted that. I wanted to be as free on the inside as you made me on the outside." They held each other in the morning sun, two people who had found in each other not just love, but liberation. As Finnegan entered his 50s and Temperance her 40s, they began to think about the future and what they wanted to leave behind. Samuel and Lucy had given them 2 grandchildren, with a third on the way. Margaret had returned from college and was now running a full-time school on the ranch property, teaching children from all the surrounding areas. Daniel, at 16, was proving to be a brilliant horseman, developing new training techniques that were attracting attention from buyers across the West. "We did good, did we not?" Finnegan asked one evening as they sat on their porch, now silvered by time but still their favorite place. "We did better than good," Temperance replied, her hand in his. "We built something real, something lasting. Not just the ranch, but a family, a community, a way of life that honors what is right." "It started with you," Finnegan said, "with seeing you in that square and knowing I could not walk away. That was the moment my life really began, Temp. Everything before that was just preparation for you." "And you gave me my life back," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You gave me the freedom to choose, and I chose you. Every day since I have chosen you. I always will." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Around them, the ranch bustled with life, their children and grandchildren carrying on the legacy they had built together. In the distance, horses grazed in green pastures, and the sound of laughter drifted from the house where Margaret was putting her nieces and nephews to bed. "Do you remember what I said that first day?" Finnegan asked. "When I offered to help you, you said everyone deserves to be free," Temperance recalled. "I did, and I meant it. But what I did not know then was that in freeing you, I was freeing myself too. From loneliness, from living only half a life. You completed me, Temp, you made me whole." "We made each other whole," she corrected softly. "That is what love does. It does not complete us like we are missing pieces. It makes us brave enough to be fully ourselves, knowing we are accepted completely." As the stars began to emerge, Finnegan and Temperance remained on their porch, wrapped in each other's arms and the life they had built together. From a desperate moment in a dusty town square, they had created something beautiful and enduring. A love story for the ages, built on the simple foundation of seeing another person's worth and choosing, every single day, to honor it. Their story would be told for generations in Llano and beyond. The cowboy who gave double to set a woman free, and the woman who took that freedom and built an empire of love and compassion alongside him. Not a fairy tale, but something better. A true story of how one act of courage and compassion could change everything. How love freely given was returned 1,000-fold. How 2 people who chose each other against all odds could create a legacy that would outlast them both. And every evening, for the rest of their long lives together, they would sit on that porch and watch the sunset, grateful for the day in the square, grateful for the choice to stand up for what was right, grateful for each other and the beautiful life they had built from that single moment of courage. Years later, when their grandchildren would ask about how they fell in love, Finnegan would take Temperance's hand and smile. "Your grandmother was traded for horses and supplies," he would say. "I gave them double and set her free forever, and she gave me everything in return. Not because she owed me, but because she chose to. That is the difference between owning someone and loving them. Love is always a choice, freely made and freely given." And Temperance would add, "Your grandfather taught me what freedom really means. Not just freedom from something, but freedom to be yourself, to choose your own path, to love without fear." He gave me that gift, and together we passed it on to all of you. That is our legacy, not the ranch or the money or any of it. Our legacy is love and freedom, intertwined forever. And in the eyes of their children, grandchildren, and eventually great-grandchildren, that legacy lived on. The Warner family remained a symbol of integrity and compassion in Texas for generations, all because one cowboy decided that every person deserved to be free, and one woman was brave enough to trust him with her heart. Their love story became legend, told and retold, inspiring others to stand up for what was right, to see the worth in every human being, to choose love over profit and compassion over convenience. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth, that freedom given freely returns as love, and love freely given creates a legacy that never dies. Finnegan and Temperance Warner lived long, full lives, surrounded by the family they had created and the community they had served. When they finally passed within months of each other, as devoted couples often do, they were laid to rest on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their headstone bore a simple inscription. He gave her freedom. She gave him love. Together they gave the world an example. And the ranch continued, generation after generation, a testament to what two people could build when they chose courage over convenience, love over profit, and freedom over control. The story of the cowboy who paid double to set a woman free, and the woman who chose to stay and build a life with him, became a cherished part of Texas history, reminding everyone who heard it that sometimes the best investment we can make is in another person's freedom, and that love, real love, is always a choice worth making.